Greetings, everybody, and welcome to the very first Culture Casino creator interview. That's right, we're going to be doing a normal, regular series interviewing incredible personalities and creators here on YouTube and other various video platforms. I have the good fortune of having an opportunity to, well, introduce somebody who created something amazing, at least from my point of view. And I would encourage you all to check out an amazing fan film in the Batman universe, done by a wonderful creator in a very noir style, black and white. It's absolutely beautiful. And it was created by, well, Patrick Logan, who I'm about to introduce you to. And without further ado, here is the creator of Gordan, a fan film. How's it going, Patrick?
It's going well, Culture Casino. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, no, I like I said, it's a great privilege to have you here. This is going to be somewhat of a more normal event where we talk with people who are actually out there creating culture in the cultural sphere. So, wow, without any further ado, you want to introduce the project that you worked on?
Yes, my name is Patrick Logan. I was the writer, director, and one of the executive producers of Gordan, Batman fan film. This is up on Creative Force Films right now. It's doing fairly well, which I appreciate. And do you want me to tell how I came about it, or where should I begin?
I tell you what, I'm going to bring in one of the forces behind your film, somebody who I think would be able to add to this conversation, Roman Santa Croce. Roman Santa Croce. Good to see you, my friend.
Hey, how you doing? Good
I'm
to see you.
doing wonderfully well. Thank you for joining us today. Now, I would like you both to be able to tell us how this all came about, how you came upon this project, and how you put it all together. So, either of you would like to take charge here would be fantastic.
Well, to start off, this was a script. This was an idea that came about basically on a discussion with friends that I had. We kept talking about realistic Batman. Like, how does Batman exist in a realistic world, and what are the realistic aspects of it? Because everybody likes the idea of detective Batman, noir Batman, that kind of gritty feel to Batman where he feels as real as he possibly can within the setting that he's in. And the one thing I kept bringing up was Batman's world would react to the things around it. Specifically, as I said it, the Joker gets two. And what I mean by that is he gets to poison the dam and kill 1,000 people. And then he gets out, goes to jail, gets out, and then does it again. And then that's the end. Because everyone in the city would want him dead at that point in time. And it was a matter of like, everyone else in the city would be affected by the things that this man does. Everybody else would be affected by all of the events that happen in Gotham. And it sometimes feels like it's Batman's world and we're all living in it. And I thought, who would, if anyone, just decide to finally take the step necessary to end this? And that's when my mind got on Jim Gordan, who I think is a criminally underrated character in the Batman mythos, with highs and lows within it. He's been like in Year One, which is one of his best depictions, if not his best depiction. But you also have him in The Killing Joke, where he comes across a little bit like I don't want to dismiss the comic, comes across a little bit like a punching bag. Like, it's more about the Batman and Joker and everything like that, and he's more of something associated with it. And you have to ask yourself, at what point is tolerating this the better thing to do? And so I sat down and wrote it, really just kind of get the idea out of my system. And it wasn't until I had started showing the script to some friends, some acting buddies of mine, specifically an acting mentor of mine named Vince Pisani, that he got me on to the proper connections to get to Roman.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good place. That's actually a great place to kind of start from. So, you kind of got turned on and put into the right direction and got connected with Roman. How did this all come together from that point forward? Did you guys Did you guys have a meeting? Were you looking at specifically doing a fan film? Were you trying to do something bigger? How did this all come together?
Rowan, you pipe in whenever you wish. But I had approached first Chris Burns, who was another executive producer on the product. He was also our first AD, who I approached the script with because he knew Vince. And it's a long line of just, from that point going forward. And he eventually got me in contact with Creative Force Films, and specifically Roman Santa Cruz, who really, when the meeting with him and Chris made me come to the realization that this was a reality that could happen. Like, sitting down with both of them made me realize that, like, no, this is a feasible production that can be made with the correct minds behind it. Like, Roman, what did you think when I first approached you with it?
I will say Chris Burns connected us. He is trying to jump in on this call, so hopefully we'll see him soon. But Chris was kind of the glue that merged Patrick and I. My background is I'm part of a company called Creative Force Films, and we started doing a lot of short films. We started it during the pandemic in a opportunity to try and just bring a lot of these filmmakers we know in the Atlanta area, we're based out of Atlanta, Georgia, into the limelight and just kind of find similar talent and just put our heads together and make some good stuff. So reading the script that Patrick sent me, that's the major reason that I'm here now is the way he wrote what he wrote, it sucked me right in. And my major thing, I'm also a director, and my big thing is when I direct is I need to be able to see it as I'm reading it. And I saw word for word everything that Patrick was writing out. And that kind of created the whole, I guess, power behind me saying, yeah, let's do it. I think this is definitely feasible. So we kind of united all of our resources that we have in our company to kind of power it behind Patrick in order to help him.
So in your mind's eye, you actually saw everything that ended up on the screen in the video that we.
Yeah, I'm a very visual and technical director, so seeing it and seeing how we could do it, it was feasible.
Sitting down with Roman, Justin, who was our cinematographer, DP, sitting down with them and actually meting out what needed to be done, actually putting rubber to road, really became the motivating factor behind it. Because I had produced one other thing before this, which got hit during COVID and still hasn't seen the light of day. But sitting down with people who really know what they're doing, and I want to give a shout out to the Atlanta area, which is full of almost Moneyball-esque talent.
Yeah,
that's just undiscovered as of yet, but has so much potential that just hasn't been seen.
Yeah,
that's kind of that was kind of a testament to what this film became, because everyone that Roman got me in contact with, that Chris got me in contact with, went above and beyond what I expected to make this a reality. Every aspect, because my background's not film. Actually, I'm an actor in the area, and while I would know the bare bones of how to make a film, this required far more talent than what I had available to myself. It was a very humbling experience to be able to sit down with people who could see the vision in a way and actually bring it to reality in ways I hadn't thought of before. And everyone who was attached, from the grips to the costumers to the set design, it was a kind of enthusiasm I didn't expect, and I was blown away by it on even just the 2 days that we shot. Far even beyond just the acting, which is the one thing that I feel like I've got my head well wrapped around.
Let me say this. So you managed to put all of this together, at least as far as your shooting days, in 2 days?
Yeah,
wow.
That's right.
Wow, that's extraordinary.
So to help with that, my background is I'm an assistant director normally for TV and film. I'm also in costumes. So I got my groundwork assistant directing on major motion pictures and TV shows. I've done Stranger Things, Doom Patrol, The Outsider, a lot of HBO stuff. Sorry, I'm 3D printing something.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine. Mine. You can't hear mine. It's in the other room, so I hear you.
Oh, cool. Okay. But doing, being in that position for so many years really helped me understand the groundwork of what needs to be done in order for the set to function properly. And that's the one thing I'm very keen on when producing, is making sure that, we're making our days, we're doing it in a fair amount of time. And I'm proud to say that our days didn't go over 11 hours. That's headlights and taillights. So we were it's all about prep. That's what I've learned. It's all in pre-production. So we spent a lot of time doing a lot of prep, especially with Patrick, making sure that he had all his wheels on his vehicle, because he was really going in with training wheels on, and we just ripped him off and we're like, come on, you got to trust us. Just jump on.
Not untrue. That is correct.
That's great. Well, first, can I say this? Both of you are very complimentary of each other, and I think it was highly complimentary because of his writing that it inspired you to even be involved in this project.
200%. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, so I'm also curious, because it was two shooting days. All in, where are you at with this production? All in, how many days from beginning to end did you think this took you to put together?
I would say it's like we did about at least a month worth of pre-production.
Definitely a month worth of prep, like proper prep, where we were going to locations, we were hammering out logistics. The real big issue with prep was renting the vehicles that we used. We went with period vehicles. So the SWAT truck and all the vehicles that you see, they're all late 80s, early 90s. So we were trying to hit that. Patrick wanted to merge a lot of different Batmen. He wanted to do
police.
Go ahead. You can.
Police vehicles after, I want to say 2000, lose the distinction of being police vehicles. They just look like normal cars, and it doesn't. If you see that, particularly in a black and white film, particularly in a noir setting, it stands out too much. So I wanted something that you get in the, I would say, early 90s, this kind of like blocky shapes where they almost look like battering rams, that kind of thing. And we were lucky to find cars like that. We were also lucky to find a SWAT van big enough that we could film in.
Yeah, we actually shot in that thing.
Yeah.
And to me, that's amazing, because that is actually in and of itself a character in this particular short film. Inside of that truck was its own entity. It was amazing. So when we talk about the production itself, so did you shoot this at a particular location? I mean, so you went through about the whole thing of farming a location for that and everything else, and you shot this practically, correct?
Yeah, we actually shot this in a studio. So the roof, spoilers, hopefully people have seen this, but so the opening sequence of him driving and the ending sequence of Gordan on the rooftop, both of those scenes were shot inside of a studio on an LED wall. So that's a 30-foot LED wall. We did the whole build a set, did the proper poor man's process. Special effects, had smoke going. We were moving the vehicles just to get proper bumps. So that in itself was a lot of fun just to do. A lot of my team, we've worked with it on set before, but we've never been the ones creating it. So that was a very fun experience for, us local crew. But in terms of the actual location, yeah, I'm proud to say it was actually one location we shot at. We shot inside the studio and outside the studio.
That's amazing. Yeah.
The SWAT van, though, that was a real big plus when we actually saw it in person, because we were actually planning on building a SWAT van. My construction foreman, Bijan Moskalani, shout out to him. He built that whole rooftop set. Him and Nick Saka, his friend, they did all of it themselves. But he came up with logistics on hydraulics and all to make this van move. And then when we found out the van fit everything, that was massive. That saved us a lot of money, which we retrofitted it.
The shots that I wanted to get, I thought I wasn't going to be able to get within the confines of a SWAT van, because at the end of the day, the meat of the movie is two people talking to each other. And if filmed flat, that can be really boring, even if you've got two great actors doing it. So there were certain shots, certain angles that I wanted to get that I figured we wouldn't have room for. But when we finally saw it, and how not just wide, but long it was, immediately that's not only saved money, but saved time.
Oh yeah.
And then everyone could actually envision the lighting we would need, envision the camera placement that you could have there. It was instantaneous.
Yeah.
I was, once again, lucky to have people who know how to think on their feet.
Yeah, and to tap into that too, Justin Reich, our DP, did a fantastic job with that space. He actually, that was only one source point lighting that he did in the top of the truck, and the rest of it was just smart bouncing with a little bit of diffusion here or there. And he actually came up with this really fun idea. At the front of the truck, there was a light leak. So when you watch it, you can actually see. We actually had one of our our electricians at the front of the truck with a light, and he was actually running it through the light leak. So it looked like the vehicle was actually driving through.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, that's amazing.
Lights, which that was all his idea on the day. He did a fantastic job with the whole lighting of the entire project. I mean, he nailed the noir look, and he's a big noir fan. So
that was one of the things I knew early on. I had the idea of making this in black and white, which I personally believe is a stylistic choice. Certain things, in my opinion, need to be in black and white. And I knew it's like, we got to have a good lighting guy, because lighting makes black and white films. And Justin went above and beyond in the task with like the whole team behind him went above and beyond the task to make the lighting real. Also, shout out Roman, who was our makeup guy again?
Oh, Alex Burns. He crushed
Alex Burns, who did a fantastic job on the Joker makeup, particularly knowing that it was going to be shot in black and white and that it would need to reflect specific parts of the lighting. Like, once again, I feel like I'm stumbling ass backwards into American talent.
Well, I'd even tack on Gordan. I mean, Jonathan D. Williams did not look as old as he did in the film. Alex did all natural, old age makeup on it. Alex is I call him a prodigy. He's fantastic. He's
yeah. Everything about that, everything about it, costumes, your set choice, your vehicle. I mean, yeah, it's amazing. It sounds like Atlanta, it is worthy of the reputation that it has as essentially the new Hollywood, because it sounds like there's a wealth of talent down there.
Yeah, not only that, but we have a good chunk of people from LA that actually moved out here for work. I'm one of them. So
smart.
Yeah.
Cheaper.
It's one of those things where I feel like the city has limitless potential to be and evolve into what it needs to be in the entertainment business. And as it grows, as it ages beyond that, I'm a firm believer that good entertainment these days can be made anywhere by anyone at any point in time. And Atlanta is just becoming a hub in the South for that talent to gather. Like, I was driving under the overpass going to a MARTA station, a public transport, and there's somebody just filming a freelance movie right there, just with 3 people and a camera.
Mm-hmm.
And with the way technology works these days, it can be done anywhere, anytime, by any person. And even something like this, which would have been a hassle back in the day, came together, I don't want to say easily, but I would say relatively easily, based on compared to 10, 20 years ago. And it makes the process a lot more efficient, a lot cheaper, and it also, once again, if you get talented people behind you, it's an excellent part to showcase their talents.
Like I said, it's amazing. Now, you talked a little bit prior to our interview beginning about what inspired you and where your inspirations, what you drew, where you drew your inspiration from when it came to this film. Do you want to kind of break that down real quickly?
Sure. When I write things or when I do anything, I'll go ahead and say this: I'm a big D&D nerd. I love storytelling that ripples out. I love the idea of a story where you drop a pebble in the pool and the waves move outwards and affect everything that it touches. And in certain mediums and comics and everything like that, that can be brought to the wayside because you only have so much time to concentrate on a couple of characters. But when you're dealing with a world overbroad, everything a person does affects the whole of the ecosystem in it. And it was just a thought process of, if everyone has agency, and like on a D&D table, all of your PCs have agency. So what you do, they'll then react to and move in directions you hadn't anticipated. So when I write anything, it is of the idea of who all is in this world, what has happened prior, and how would they be reacting to what has happened now? What energy are they bringing into it? I write like an actor. And it's about who are these characters, what are they doing, and what are they bringing in? So in this sense, for me, for Gordan, this dance, whatever you call it, has been happening for like 10 years. And you have to ask yourself, at least from a psychological standpoint, at what point when this becomes routine, which is the main thing I wanted to get across at the beginning of the movie, is this is routine. He gets out of the car and says, "What's the damage this time?" Like this has happened 100 times before.
Yeah.
At what point in the routine do you say, okay, this isn't working anymore? We have to do something differently. Everybody has that breaking point, and it's not necessarily a psychotic break. It's almost exhaustion. How long do I suffer this doing nothing when I feel like a solution is in front of me? And that's kind of where I was coming from that, because I feel like Jim Gordan, a man who has been not just personally maligned, but as a civil servant to a city, has to sit by and see this destruction happen again and again and again. At what point is he going to say, I understand why you, being Batman, can't do this, but that doesn't mean I can't? Which is how I wanted to direct John in the film. It's like, it's not personal. It's your duty to do this. And I'm not going to say whether what he did was right or wrong, but it's less of a, he's come to an insane breaking point and more along the lines of, I am a civil servant with a duty to the citizens of Gotham, to my family, to everyone around me. How long am I going to let this go?
Yeah. I guess I would have to ask both of you, where do you see this type of film, this, or maybe within this world that you've created here? Do you see a future in that? Do you see a future beyond Gordan? Do you see you guys talking about that at all?
Roman?
Are you saying in the universe of Batman?
Or just, along the same lines as Gordan. Do you see a future in these types of small, short films? I guess. Do you see that in the same world, or do you see an expansion into something different?
I mean, we actually talked about Patrick had an idea to expand on Gordan and staying in the Batman world and doing that. Me personally, I've already shot 2 other fan films prior to this. It's actually how Patrick found me, was through our Star Wars fan films that we've made.
Excellent fan films, by the way.
Thank you. My agenda right now is I'm trying to make some original content, so I can actually, make some money off of the efforts that we put in.
That is a problem.
With that said, though, I mean, I personally, I love dramatic narratives. It really intrigues me as both a producer and a director. And I definitely see a future doing projects like these, especially with the resources that we have in front of us. We can definitely tap into it. So Patrick and I are actually working on some future collaborations. We've already been talking about it. So
yeah.
That's good news as somebody who's a huge fan of this film. I think I've watched it like 8 times now. I have to say that it tonally, it's 100% on point. It's wonderfully done. Every aspect of it is covered. I mean, as a film nerd, I would just be like, I'm just drooling all over it. But Mike, I think I'm going to say this is, and this is meant to be complimentary. You're criminally undersubbed on your channel.
Yeah, we are.
I mean, I'm going to use this opportunity to promote you everywhere I possibly can. Even though I'm not necessarily a large channel, but I think it's extraordinary what you're doing. If you're working on original content, you definitely want to blast that out there in the world, because I think you'd have a lot of support.
Definitely. I shot a micro short a couple of years ago. It's not online because it's original, so it's actually in the film festival circuit right now. I've been circulating it. but it's receiving good reviews. So every positive review we get is kind of encouraging us to expand more and challenge ourselves more. We actually have some fun. We have a very fun challenge that Patrick came up with. I'm super interested with the next.
Okay, now I'm intrigued. I'm very excited because again, the quality of this film is fantastic. Your actors, local talent.
Yes,
sort of.
Yeah, sort of. I keep forgetting Mark's from Canada. So I'll talk about all three of the main cast. I do want to say the extras we had in the police scene, like, great. Looked, they fit the part, did everything they had to do naturally, and you can't underestimate the necessary for good extras. That can really make or break a scene.
Yeah, the background is so important, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, very much so. But as for our main actors, I'm going to start with Jonathan D. Williams. He's a man I've known for a while. We just kind of circle each other in the acting circuit. I didn't have an opportunity to work with him, though, up until this point. And when I shot him the script, he looked at me and said he would love to do it, mainly because when we sat down and he talked about his reasoning, he talked about his own impetus in the character because he's a family man. He has a long amount of history, not necessarily in law enforcement, but his family comes from a lot of different backgrounds involving things like that. And he as an actor has so much quiet pathos to him. He's a guy who can look, do nothing, say nothing, and just look with his eyes slightly to the side and says a million things, which is exactly what I wanted with this character. And everything he was doing, particularly in the close-up, every movement, he's having very active thoughts and feelings in that. And you can just tell with just the eye line and the movement. And that contrast of energies, which is so important in a scene. Because Mark's Joker is not bombastic, but it's high energy. It draws the eye to it immediately. And when you contrast that with a low energy that's also commanding, it makes the scene pop that much more. The easy route would have been for Jim to, scream, shout, revenge, everything like that. But that's not as intriguing as a man who does this quietly. And a man who looks over to the side of this man who feels like he's in control and then just takes it from him in an instant without having to pull his gun or raise his voice.
Yeah, it adds more weight, that quiet strength. Yeah.
Yeah. Jonathan was capable of all of that before coming in. He's an Atlanta working actor. He's been in a ton of things, more than me. Been in the industry for 30 years or something like that. He's great. And he came in with the appropriate amount of pathos to do that. Opposite end of that, Mark Meer, Commander Shepard, for those of you who do not know, the voiced Commander Shepard does a ton of things. Great on stage. I actually met him personally through a D&D stream we both did called D4. And we kind of got started talking a little bit about that, and we talked scripts. His wife is a script writer as well as a writer in general. And then I sent him the Batman script because I was curious of his thoughts about it. And he's like, do you have someone to play the Joker? I said no. He's like, I would love to play the Joker. I wanted to play the Joker. Please let me play the Joker. And so that kind of came about in that way. And then after we worked on this Call of Cthulhu stream called Bookshops of Arkham. It's on Chaosium's channel if you want to check it out. He plays the Keeper there. He's amazing. We had finally sat down. Then we started talking about dates he wanted to come in. And we didn't have a long rehearsal process. We only had, because I had to ship him in from Canada, and we only had a couple days to rehearse. But he clearly been working on it as he came forward with the energy, and I actually had to tone him down just a little bit. But it's not just the energy, it's the consistency of the energy. Because we did that whole van scene, it was a singular take, usually from start to finish.
Yeah, it was a 7-minute take every time.
7-minute take the whole time. And Mark would come in with as much energy from the first take as we did to like the 30th or the 40th down the line for whatever shot we were getting. And it was tireless. He's a boundless energy. And not just that, like he's such a physical actor, even being in a straitjacket.
His facial expressions were ridiculous. I'm like, this guy is the Joker, and his eyes, I don't know how he does it, but it's like he'll go from like, that really squinty look all of a sudden to having his eyes are, and I'm like, oh, this guy is bananas. He was doing such a great job. That's amazing.
Yeah. Actually, a fun note about his character too is he actually brought those lenses that he wears in the film. That was all his idea. That was his addition to the character. And Alex Burns, our makeup artist, he loved it. And he's like, oh yeah, please, let's go ask permission. Let's go. And then they came out and they asked, and I was like, absolutely. But it's up to Patrick, and Patrick was definitely.
It was great. And excuse me, the fact that he could do that with such consistency, which when you're playing a role like that, I don't think a lot of people, it saps your energy pretty quick if you got to do it take after take after take after take. But he came into it with such consistency and with such energy that I was blown away by the end of it. And finally, I want to talk about our Batman, Micah Thompson.
Oh, yeah.
Who was he was a linchpin in the set for a bunch of reasons. For one, he was our stunt coordinator. Start off on that.
Mike has actually worked with us on previous projects for stunts. So I already knew him coming in. So go ahead, Patrick, continue.
But I wanted a more man about town Batman. Like the last Batman that we saw, I'm fine with Robert Pattinson as Batman. I think he does a good job of it. I don't think Batman needs to be a gigantic bodybuilder bruiser. And Micah Thompson, who's a well-versed martial artist in his own right, highly athletic, tall, cuts an imposing figure. He was more than down to play it. And I didn't just get him because he was a stunt guy. It's like he was a guy who has, let's say this, a bit of the brood to him. Like when he acts, there's a bit of that underlying combination of anger and sadness in him that comes across. It's why I wanted him to take the hood off, because I wanted people to see his face, his eyes, his look for that brief scene he has with Jim at the end of it, because he's got a lot of emotional depth too. And I thought it was criminal if he didn't get a chance to do that. It also emphasizes how important this is to Bruce. Like, okay, man to man, nothing in the costume. Tell me why you did this. And Micah, like, this was the first time I had worked with Micah, but Chris and Roman had already told me about how for like just good he was in general, and he really brought it into set. Like, there were a lot of takes we did where he was explosive with anger, even in the same way he was able to do that consistently. And I can't sing his praises enough. He's not just a fantastic stunt guy; he's also a fantastic actor.
You guys hit the perfect storm somehow, because everything about this production is phenomenal, and I can't sing its praises enough, other than to just say I've seen it a ton of times now. Mm-hmm. So you do plan on doing something along future with this, I hope.
If it gains popularity, like I said, it's like we had to pour kind of our personal finances into this to make it come into a reality. And I don't mind doing that if I can afford it. But it's one of the things, it's like, if it gets enough of a traction, enough of a following, as for what I would do in the future, I write scenes of intense conversations of people talking. Like, I used to be a professional wrestler. I can write a fight scene, but I was an indie scrub. I don't want to make myself seem like a bigger deal than I am, but
I like you said, I mean, it's really important. Dialogue is something that good dialogue has been absent from films for a long period of time. I'm sorry. It's just the case. Oftentimes you find in television much better dialogue than you're seeing in films right now. But we actually have another guest joining us, and I would like you to introduce this wonderful creator.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey, Chris.
Thanks for joining us today. I have to say that well, first of all, I beyond being a fan, I can't wait to hear what are the other projects you have on the horizon, because obviously there's other things that you kind of alluded to. Are you willing to speak about those, Roman, Patrick, Chris?
I'll let Roman
Okay.
start there if he wants
Roman.
to.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, like I was saying, we're looking into some more original ideas. So we do have a few concepts in the pipe. I'm at that producer head now where it's like whichever one gets finished first, we'll start kind of tapping into. We have a kind of like I guess we'll call it a dramatic narrative. But the interesting part about the drama, this is Patrick's concept, is the whole thing takes place inside of a moving vehicle, which I'm very interested in, and that would be very fun to shoot. I have a few resources that we could tap into to try and keep it interesting from a directive narrative. And I think that could be cool. Another concept we're doing is it's a horror vibe, but it's more psychological horror. One of my favorite directors is Hitchcock. So I'm all about creating that whole headspace in the viewer's mind, less showing them. So we have one of those in the pipe. And then obviously we still have our fan films that we love near and dear. We do have a couple other fan film concepts, one being Star Wars. Another one being, we actually have a third installment to the two that we've already shot to try and tie up the whole series and make our own little trilogy. Because that's, being a Star Wars head my whole life and obsessed with the character of Bosk and finally making him modernized. I want to see it through and actually see all the things I wanted to see him do on a screen. I wanted to try and
one of those amazing bounty hunters we didn't get enough behind. Right?
That's true.
Yeah, that's so cool.
And Chris Burns also, he's actually, he plays the character of Dengar in our sequel, which is the film we just released, No Disintegrations. We did that earlier in the year, but that's another character you don't really see much of. And we also modernize that character and trying to just bring light to it. So we have a lot of really fun ideas on the horizon. We're just waiting to see which one is feasible at this time with the money we have. So,
wow. Oh, well, Chris, since you just joined us, would you want to break down your participation and your experience during this amazing project you guys put together?
Yeah. A mutual friend introduced Patrick and I, and he and I met. We talked about what he'd want to do with the script, what his ideas were, and what he was trying to accomplish. And after getting that initial meeting and breakdown, I got a hold of Roman. Roman and I have done a number of low budget projects together, and we've done a vast number of Hollywood studio projects together professionally. So since we had just wrapped up doing his second Star Wars film, and Roman's much better with budgets than I am, I asked him, hey, you think you could help us break this down and like do the mechanics of figuring out the budget and all that? And we moved forward doing that. And between the three of us, Patrick, Roman, and I was like, well, why don't we split up the creative duties and we'll shoot this short film, which became Gordan. And the result of that is what you see on screen. So I took on, Roman and I both took on producing as far as getting the crew, putting in the crew. Roman kind of isolated the budget and allocated funds where he saw fit for the budgetary restrictions we had. When we shot the film, I was the assistant director, so I kind of ran set for Patrick. He would tell us what he wanted. We'd communicate.
Insanely helpful, by the way. Like Chris, I wish Chris was on other sets that I've been a part of as an actor, because he keeps everything on set, on time, moving forward consistently, which is a bane of a lot of sets. But I felt like if we got anywhere within the time or the budget that we had, it was because of Chris.
Well, thanks. And to give you a little bit of background, I don't know what the guys talked about before I came in, but Roman and I have had very similar career trajectories. I did a lot of commercial assistant directing early in my career. Roman's done a lot of assistant directing with film and television on large budget projects. So I've done it from this viewpoint of mid to low budget projects. He's done it from mid to high budget projects. So we both know how to speak in that language. We both know how to communicate effectively to other departments, so we can find out what they need to achieve what Patrick as a director wants, and then we try to facilitate and help them make that happen. Some people confuse assistant directors as people telling you what to do or how to do your job. No, we're a support staff. We're there to help you with what you need to get the job done.
I like to call us Google. We're the internet.
Well, I think you guys should describe yourself as facilitators, because nothing would happen without you.
That's true.
Yeah. So Roman, I think I can speak for both of us. We try to help other departments facilitate and give them the tools that they need, so
Absolutely.
we can all be successful together. We're not fighting.
We're team players.
Tell other people how to do their jobs.
Yeah.
They know how to do their jobs. That's why we brought them in, and we don't need to fucking micromanage any of that shit. So you ask people, how can we help you so we can all get this done, and then we move forward together to get the workflow accomplished.
Yeah.
You know, if it takes 8 hours, great. If it takes 12 hours, okay. You know, we all have lives, we have families, we have other things we like to do. We love doing this, but if we can do it in an effective, efficient manner, let's do that. Let's have a great time doing it. And let's go home, go to the pub, have a fucking beer, and not be there for 20 hours. Who the fuck wants to do that? Nobody wants to really do that, but we do it sometimes.
Yeah, that's one of our major priorities on our sets is we want to make sure everyone's having a good time, period. It doesn't matter if we're going early, we're going late. We just want to make sure that the mood is always positive.
Time management is very important when it comes to projects like this. But I think this is the perfect time for me to ask all of you the same question. If somebody's looking to do a short film comparable to what you're doing, what would you tell them to start? What would you tell them are the key elements to be successful in if they're trying to go after this endeavor? I mean, obviously you guys are in the perfect situation. The perfect storm happened for you in Atlanta. You had all of this talent already amassed together. Where would you tell somebody to start? Because there are a lot of people that want to create things now because they feel there's a dearth of creative material out there in the world.
I'll go ahead and start. Just from my perspective of it and what I had to do. It was about the connections that I had and what I wanted to do. I have been a part of just being an actor, many a table read where I'm reading a script and all I can think about is like, this is a good script. None of this is feasible. Because the question is, what's your budget? Because it's like, I'm looking at you, you have $10.50 on the table for a script that's going to cost $100,000 to produce. And all I can think about is like, where is the money coming from? It's important not just to do something. It's important to do something that you can do. Like at the end of the day, like the budget for this was about $30K. And this is not a lot of action. Mainly two people in a room talking. And a lot of that money went into getting the correct talent, getting the sound design, making sure everything was quality. If one thing I had to say, and I think Chris and Roman will agree with me, spend money on sound if you have it. Sound, people will forgive somewhat shitty visuals. They will not forgive somewhat shitty sound.
Sound is the first thing you hear and the last thing you hear with every film. So,
I'd say good.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
To go back to your question about anyone who's trying to make a short film, or beginning stages of that, I would say whatever city you live in, whatever state you live in, there are film festivals. Find like-minded people who are doing the same thing as you are. Go volunteer on their projects. Build up equity and favors and relationships. And then when you go to make your own film, you know, call in those favors. Say, hey, remember I helped you on your first, second, third film. I came out and did that. You think you can give me a day or two at a discounted rate, or can you volunteer your time? And you know, it's just building solid relationships with people, and then you know, just being a good person when you're paying those favors forward, or you're collecting those on your own projects. Roman and I have worked together professionally. how long? 10 years, I think.
11 now. Yeah, it's been
11
years.
years now. So we had a working relationship professionally before. I mean, we became fast friends and started doing projects together, small projects together. But we had that working relationship on a professional level. And then we were like, okay, we like each other's company. We like the ideas and kind of creative content that we're both doing that similar and different. While we try to make some stuff together. And he and I have helped other friends who have made short films or feature films as well. And like I said, built equity in those relationships and helped other people to tell their stories. So when it came time for Roman to do his first Star Wars film, we were able to tap into, he spent money on it, but we were able to tap into some favors and things like that to help offset some of the cost. It would have been, twice as much money to shoot either one of his Star Wars films if we didn't have that equity already built in from helping other people with their projects. So that's what I would say. Check out film festivals in your state or your city and build that equity. It's very important and it's invaluable.
Cooperative collaboration. That's the important thing to start with.
Yeah, and if I could just finish out, these two actually already hit the major points that I was going to get to, which is, proper funding and proper team. I would say putting those together, it's all about, hence the name of our company, Creative Force Films, is creating a creative force of people. Not only is it important to find those talented people in your local area by going to festivals and all, but it's important to make sure that you have a good chemistry with them on set. I can't stress that enough. When you actually go to shoot the project, you want to make sure that you have people that not only you trust, but people that are capable and reliable, and you just get along. And that's a very big, important priority. And in terms of making your own project, I will say this first and foremost: always be prepared to spend more money than you think. That is a number one, especially if you want to involve like SAG-AFTRA or any type of union or insurance and stuff like that. You will start spending more money than you plan to, but take it in strides. My biggest advice to all beginning filmmakers is make sure you solve the problems before they happen. And that's an AD thing that I was taught, but Chris can also attest to that. You got to make sure that you see the problems before they even get to you. And then when they do, you already have 3 answers for it. So.
Yeah. So Chris, that actually falls probably into your expertise. So what are some things that people should be on the lookout for when they start their project? What they can preemptively take care of?
Well, I think, Roman mentioned pre-production and planning. So knowing what your budget is, knowing what your locations are, knowing how many people you have to feed on a daily basis, what your crafty budget is. I mean, what shots you want to do, having a shot list. Wow. We do feature films where people don't have a shot list and they don't have storyboards. So and Roman knows this just as much as I do on the last thing we did. Sometimes you have no idea what we're filming, and you get into a room with 400 people and they're trying to figure out what we're doing, and it gets frustrating.
And you're just standing there waiting for them to tell you to do something. You have no idea.
I'm a big fan. I'm a huge fan of shot list and storyboards. So you visually have them there for all the crew to see, and you can go up and you can put a big red X after you finish that shot or setup, and it feels like you're progressing through the workload, and it gives people incentive to get the work done. It's like, oh, okay, we have 3 setups left. We're going to get to go home soon. Let's get through those setups, and boom, we're done for the day. And then we'll come back tomorrow and shoot some more.
Wait a minute. So you both just said right here that you go into big shoots, right? With no previs? None.
Well, not previs, but not.
Well, anything like storyboards. You don't. There's no.
It depends, but there are a lot of times where we don't have any of that information, and it's weird. People like to protect it because they're afraid that if it gets out, people are going to start coming up and like, well, why aren't we shooting this shot? Like they start trying to interject how they do their own thing.
Okay.
But,
right. So sometimes they'll limit that information to like a director of photography, a gaffer.
Department heads.
Very few department heads. Like if it's a effects heavy show, it'll be the visual effects supervisor or the special effects makeup supervisor if you have a lot of character actors and things like that. But for the rank and file crew, it feels like there's no direction. We have no idea what the fuck's going on throughout the day. Whereas I think it's more effective for morale and for the flow of the work to have that information for everybody. And, you know, if you don't want to talk to individuals like, you know, your third electric, tell them, hey, have your department head. If you have questions, go to your department head, and then you have your department head come to the ADs, and then we'll get you your answers. If you don't want to field those questions like that, there's always a good way to inspire the crew and inspire the workload without making people feel like you don't have a fucking plan or you don't give a shit about their opinions. What were we were talking about getting people started. Roman, you were finishing up on a couple of points.
No, it was pretty much that, Chris, we were talking about just what are some things we can tell new filmmakers to stop the problem before it happens. And one thing being the shot listing is very important.
Pre-production stuff.
Pre-pro is massive. I'm a big advocate. If I have like a 4 or 5 day shoot, I'm taking a month to prep that just so it's ready. So
right. And like during the preparation of a shoot, it's somewhat a democracy, right? You'd agree with that, Roman?
Oh, very much, yeah.
It's fairly a democracy. But when we get into film, it's a fucking dictatorship. And I'm not trying to say that to be a dick or anything like that, but you have to have one person's vision, and they have a direction. They know the story they want to tell. They know what we're doing visually, emotionally. And if you have
too many cooks in the kitchen,
when we're shooting and it's run by committee, it creates chaos. And one person will go and tell an actor one thing, and then you'll have a different person tell an actor another, and you're getting different performances. Or you'll have someone tell makeup to do something, and then someone will show up and the makeup's completely different from what was asked. We've had that. Roman and I had that happen on one project.
Well, actually, something simple here with Gordan. Since Patrick, it was one of Patrick's first times really directing, and he was a little unsure. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Patrick, but you did feel overwhelmed day one. And Chris and I pulled him aside and we said, "We've got you. Don't worry. But we need you to know this. If we have any information we need to that we think should be given, we're going to go to you, and we're going to offer the information. And it should always come from your mouth, especially."
And that was an aspect that I do want to say on there. Is my directing experience is very limited. So in more complicated shots where there's a lot of movement going on, it was nice to be able to lean on both Chris and Roman as a way of they've done this what feels like 1,000 times. So blocking, setup, things like that. I write everything like a stage play, but when you're actually on set and everything's there, and there's so many scary lights. But when you're actually there and the rubber hits the road, it can get a little overwhelming. And it's nice to know that you've got quality people you can lean on whenever you feel like that. Correct, the first day I was a bit overwhelmed, but you guys came in, the foundation of the support was there, which I tremendously appreciate. And I felt like a lot more, because of that, I felt more confident going into the second day, and things were a lot smoother because of that.
And part of the thing that helped me was that knowing Roman was going to do the edit, right? And what he and Patrick were imagining for any of the effects or visualizing some of the beats or how they were going to cut something together, I could talk with the performers, and Patrick would talk to them about emotional content. And if it's like a movement or a beat or an instruction with a prop or driving a car or something like that, I could talk to the performers and say, okay, I know it doesn't make sense, but let's try this like this. And if it was an emotional or a mental adjustment, Patrick, let him go in and give notes to the performers. So he was dealing with the emotional content. But like with Micah coming in as Batman, flying and landing into the rooftop, we did that, a dozen times?
Yeah, I think we had 13 takes.
So that was a combination of a couple of stunt guys trying to get that going with the camera move and Jonathan. So it was a pretty involved situation. But knowing that each of us were dealing with a certain aspect on the day we were filming and just trying to focus on that. So Patrick wouldn't have to worry about talking to the light, he would talk to the gaffer or the DP.
Right.
If it was technical things, I could go and run that for him, and he could just worry about watching the frame and the emotional content and getting the story beats while I was dealing with the mechanics of getting the shot created. And if it was something Roman knew in the edit, it would be different because it wouldn't cut together quite right, or the effects wouldn't lay over well. Like we did one shot with 2 shots of Gordan driving the car, one with the window down and one with the window up. And then Roman married that together as we were pulling back and tracked out of the car. And it looked like, suddenly we're outside the car and the window was up the whole time. So simple things like that, where the 3 of us are communicating with each other to make sure we're telling the story Patrick wants to get.
But we're also not micromanaging, which is the most important thing with newer filmmakers. A lot of folks, if it's their project, they're going to want to watch everything. And I'll tell you right now, when you start doing that, you're going to miss stuff. So,
well, I have to say it all came together beautifully. And since, we're at the point now where we're going to start to wind down, I have to ask all of you probably a pretty straightforward question. What do you think, or what would you like people to take away from this short film? And would it be fair? Would it be fair that you would like this to become something broader, not just specifically this Gordan film, but the productions that you're all working on? Because it seems like what you're doing with your Creative Force films is you're actually out there creating cultural content now. So just what do you want people to take away from this?
Personally, something I would like people to take away from this is, first, when you're making something like this, dialogue and intense, quiet moments can be just as impactful as action. I feel like, particularly in the fan film or the low budget community, we have this, not jealousy, but almost a bit of insecurity that, well, Hollywood has the big action scene, so we need the big action scene. Or Hollywood has this set, so we need the set. And my thought is, like, you're never going to be able to do it as well as they can because of the money. Like, they can throw money at this problem and make it better. Not to say that, like, there's not amazing fan content out there. There's amazing fan films or anything like that. But for this, not just that it's easier to film, but that you can reach people more with just an intense conversation, with just implication and dialogue and things that are being said that are kind of contrary to the energies of the actors. Small things like that draw people in. When I remember movies and the things that affect me, it's more conversation and stillness. It's anticipation. It's not necessarily the bombastic nature of the action. And also, when you have 2 very interesting, very dynamic characters with contrasting energy face each other in some way, it's almost always interesting. So long as you know who those characters are and you know what they're doing there, it'll almost always be interesting. And to have faith that that conflict can generate the kind of interest and the kind of feeling you want to portray in a fan film or a film in general.
Roman?
I'd say my biggest takeaway for viewers, I would say it's that people like us, not major studios, can make content that can interest you. And especially with, I don't want to get too personal, but the direction that some of these studios are going with some very beloved content is starting to muddy the waters in a way. But when we can create our own stuff and show our own little stories, especially with a story like this, I mean, this is a what if, but what I think my major goal with producing this was to show people that we can match it with, half the, not even half, barely a percentage of the money that's being put into major productions. Yeah. And I always view every project I do as a challenge. Can I make this? And can I make this what I'm seeing? And I'm proud to say that, we're 3 for 3 so far. So
yeah, you definitely are, Roman. And Chris. What do
Yeah,
you?
for me, I want to tell great stories. I want to tell fun stories. I want to engage people creatively, emotionally, and intellectually. And if we're doing that, I think that we're in a great place. The two Star Wars films that we shot were a lot of fun. I got to play Dengar, one of them. You know, Roman's like, I want you to play Dengar. I was like, the toilet paper guy? Who the fuck wants to do that? And he's like, no, I'm like, he's fat. No, this is when he's like young and kind of still good looking. And I'm like, okay, why not? So yeah, if we're telling like fun stories, engaging, or just getting people excited, then we're doing something right. And hopefully people are like, these guys should make some more shit. For me, let's just make some more stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which,
Well-
if the interest is there, I would consider making another one of these, like in the thought in which it would go, existing in a world where things have shifted, where the status quo has changed. Yeah,
Right.
it's something to consider, but like at moment, as of right now, no, I don't have another plan to make another one. But we'd say,
Well, I speaking as the audience, I'm going to say, you guys make some good stuff. It really is good.
Thank you.
And I'm looking forward to more, and I'm going to do everything I can to promote you. And I want to say thank you for your time today. Roman, Chris, Patrick, you guys do great work. Your actors did great work. Your cast and crew did great work. So congratulations and thank you for sharing Gordan with all of us and giving us a little hope that we're going to get, good stuff in the future, let's say. So,
it's always possible, and it can come from anywhere.
all right. Well,
Yeah.
any final words, gentlemen? Any of you?
Thank you for having us.
Oh,
Yes.
no.
Yeah.
Thank you all very, very much. And for those of you out there in the audience, if you haven't seen the film yet, you didn't mind a few of the spoilers, well, go see the film. In fact, it's in the description below. And, if you've already seen this film, share it out. Share the link out to not just the stream, obviously, but to this particular film, because creative force films really is putting it out there on display that it doesn't take a huge budget to make great things. Thank you,
That's
guys.
right.
Have a wonderful day, everybody, and we'll see you soon.
Perfect.